Hello, I'm Liz Cassidy and welcome to the Leaders Have Authentic Conversations webinar. If you haven't already done so, please feel free to download the PDF handout, and the web address for downloading that handout is available there on the screen. I'll also make that handout available to you on the replay page. So today we're going to talk about authentic conversations, what they are and what that means. Sponsor today is me, and today I'm delivering a no sales information packed webinar. It will be approximately an hour with question and answer, and it's about giving you maximum value and maximum learning about how to have authentic conversations. Moving through what we're going to cover today. Leaders have authentic conversations. First of all, we're going to spot how to time wasting, energy sapping, language of mediocrity, and how to avoid it. We're going to talk about what real leaders talk about, the breakthrough language, types of conversations and when to have them, and we're talking 57 varieties of conversation. We're in a Heinz conversation mode there. What are the elements of a truly authentic conversation, and how do you have one? And it's almost a tick list. If you can tick off all the elements, you know you're having an authentic conversation. According to the Wall Street Journal, leaders spend 85% of their time with other people. That's only 15% of their time alone. 30% of that time will be in physical meetings. So off a 55-hour week, they only get 6 hours fully alone. Now the percentage doesn't change much as you move down the management ladder, but the types of conversations and the types of meetings and interaction do change. In some instances, the quality changes as well. So we're spending 85% of our time with other people, 30% tied up in physical meetings. What's the quality of the conversations like? I was talking to someone yesterday that I met through LinkedIn. If you're not connected with me on LinkedIn, please feel free to send me an invitation. About 22 managers were asked, were they having quality meetings? And these were senior execs, and every single one of them said no. One thing they wanted to change was their level of authenticity, and they wanted to increase the quality of interaction they had with others. That's why we're having this webinar. The whole purpose of this webinar is to talk about being more authentic in our conversations. Now later on in the year, I'm going to invite Dov Baron to come and talk to us about being an authentic leader. But today it's all about having authentic conversations. One of the things that differentiates those who lead, that's as opposed to those who have the leadership title, but those who lead have confidence in themselves and their position, and implicit in that having confidence that is they know themselves and they know what their position is. They have courage. They're prepared to take a stand. They're prepared to step up, step out, and to speak up. So those who lead differentiate themselves by their actions, by their speech, by their level of confidence in their awareness of what they're doing. They're more about, this is where I'm going and this is what I stand for. So why would we take time out to be authentic? And why would we take time out to have authentic conversations? Well, one of the things we know that increases engagement in organizations is employee loyalty and employee trust in their immediate manager and trust in the leadership team. Now, if you're not being authentic in your conversations and authentic in your language, how on earth can you expect your team to trust you? If you're not being authentic and mean what you say and do what you say, how will people ever trust you? How will they have faith, belief in what you say and what you do? And how can you inspire them if you're talking a lie? So why would we be authentic? Well, it increases loyalty, increases engagement, it increases that sense of trust, and it allows us to inspire our people. So ultimately we can achieve more. And when we achieve more, that has a direct monetary impact on the bottom line of the business. So if nothing else, increase your level of authenticity to impact on the bottom line. And that's the hard side of it. The soft side, if you want to call it the soft side, is that you'll be a much easier person to work with and your people will want to be there with you. Moving on. There is a model of human interaction called transactional analysis. It comes out of the 1970s in the book I'm Okay, You're Okay. This is a really old book, but if you haven't read it, it's a great read. It's a great introduction into human relationships. And a lot of the later research was based on the work that's described in this book. So in transactional analysis, we take on a position, and we can take on a position of a parent, a child, or an adult. As you would imagine, when we take on the position of a parent or a child, we create an unequal relationship. And the dichotomy of this relationship is one of us has power and the other is disempowered. When we take on the position of parent in a relationship, we give ourselves more power and we disempower the other person. When we take on the position of child in a relationship, we give our power away to the other person. Now, that's great if you're a child talking to a parent. If you're in an organization or a business and you choose to take on the role of child and be disempowered and give power to someone else, then you are not fulfilling your role. You are cheating the organization, you're cheating yourself, and you're cheating the people who work for you. If you choose to take on the role of parent, and this is parent within the transactional analysis language, i.e. the person with more power, if you choose to take on the role of parent and you're putting your people into the role of child and you're disempowering them, again you're cheating yourself, you're cheating the person, and you're cheating the organization. So one of the things that we will be encouraging is when you're having authentic conversations is that you take on the role of independent adult as an equal to other adults in relationships. So within the transactional analysis, you can choose the parent, the child, or the adult. We will encourage you when you're having authentic conversations to take on the role of independent adult and to treat other people as independent adults as well. Treat them with respect and treat them as equals. And so I'm sure you're all going to get onto Amazon now and buy that book, I'm Okay, You're Okay. So what are authentic conversations? I've got a couple of definitions here. The first one, shocker and shocker. I don't like it as much as the second one, but we'll go through it. Authentic conversations demonstrate how we can move to honest and authentic interactions. And it's a bit of a worry when we use a word and a definition for a word. So they're adult conversations, which I just described, that create increased commitment. They give true accountability and improve business performance. Funny that. So in order to improve morale within an organization and to improve the organization's business, new and authentic conversations are essential. So that's one fairly long definition. My favorite definition by Eric Brown is that an authentic conversation is one in which a person has a simple, honest, and real conversation with another person. That's simple, honest, and real. And that could be our checklist. Are we having simple conversations? Are we having honest conversations? And are they real? Moving through. Okay, so let's talk about the mediocrity. Now, when we're talking about mediocrity in terms of our language and our conversations, it's got a fairly narrow description. It's a descriptive language. It's talking that refers to things. It's about stuff and it's about events. It's what I call the water cooler, the lazy conversations. Or it's the 6:30 media sensationalist, let's turn all our viewers into victims kind of conversations. You'll know when you're using descriptive language because you'll be explaining your position. You'll be justifying a position or an event. You'll be giving your opinion. You'll be reporting on something that's happened. You'll be making an assessment of an event or a person. You'll be making a judgment call or a statement of facts on an event. You'll be giving a reason why something has happened, or you'll be making a complaint about what's happened. So this is all talking about things, stuff, events outside ourselves. It's all about the past and it's all after the fact. The dangerous thing about this descriptive language is that it limits possibility and it doesn't make anything happen. If anything, it creates stuckness. We're stuck in our position, we're stuck in the events, and the events happen to us. And for those of you who are familiar with the model of locus of control, it's about having an external locus of control, but it's all about that language. this happened, that happened. Did you see the football match at the weekend? What did you think of the referee? It's all of that opinion, past history stuff. It's circumstance determined, so it happens to us. We don't make it happen, and it leaves us stuck in mediocrity. The focus is all about the past. As I say, it's the water cooler conversation. Nothing happens, nothing changes, there is nothing new, there is no leadership involved in descriptive language. It's about stuff, it's about staying in mediocrity, it's about being in the past. And I'll encourage you to listen to your own language, listen to the words that come out of your own mouth, and notice where you slide into descriptive language. Because when you're sliding into descriptive language, you are not leading. You are not choosing to lead, and you are not being a leader. You're allowing life and the world and events to happen to you. When you listen to those around you and you hear them using descriptive language and talking about things, I suggest initially don't do anything. Don't tell them they're being mediocre. Don't hop into opinion justification. Don't complain about it, because that means you're dropping in there as well. Simply notice it, be aware of it, and unless you're in a position to shift it, don't do anything. Leave them in their happiness. Okay? When you've got a pig covering itself in mud, don't disturb it. Allow it to wallow in the mud. The only time you disturb a pig is when it's come out of the mud. So how do we shift out of this? Where do we go instead of being in the language of mediocrity? Well, now we shift through into committed language. Talking initially that makes things happen. This is the language of change. It's about actions and outcomes. And this is the language, I believe, of corporate meetings. It's the language of normal action and what we do. Now, those of you who tuned in for my Delegating for Sanity webinar a few months ago will notice that I talked about requests and promises. I'm going to cover them off again today because they are core to making things happen. And I'm going to cover them off fairly briefly today because I'm going to be running that Delegating for Sanity webinar again, so you can tune in and get more depth then. So this is more about actions and outcomes, what you need to do to make things happen. The third part of the trifecta here about shifting your language is making offers, and again I will come through to that in more detail. The focus here is about today and the future. It's very much self-determined as opposed to what we were talking with descriptive language, which was circumstance determined. It's around continuous improvement. We're not going to make great dramatic shifts, but we will make step changes. And the focus starts with now, here, today. So let's look at requests, promises, and offers. A request. Initially, you'll think there's a phrase that I was taught when I first went to work in an oil refinery in England, teaching granny to suck eggs. The visual that goes with that, I never met my granny, but if I had, I don't imagine that I would ever teach her to suck an egg. But however, I think the person who said it to me said that I was talking the obvious. So whilst you're looking at the screen, you may think, oh, Liz is teaching granny to suck eggs, stating the obvious. But when we make effective requests, we cover off on all of these elements, and it's surprising how often we miss one of the elements and our requests are ineffective, and when they're ineffective, nothing changes, nothing shifts, there's no incremental improvement. So let's have a look at the elements of an effective request. The first one is it's loud. It's out loud. And this is important for you introverts. So introverts tend to have their conversations either on the way to work or on the way to a meeting inside their heads. When they've had the conversation, they assume that it's a done deal, and then forget to have the out loud conversation with the party that the conversation needs to happen with. How do I know this? Because I do it regularly. And I have to remind myself that I have to have an out loud conversation. So a direct request is spoken. It's spoken to a specific person who hopefully will be listening. It covers off on what the task is to be performed, the standards and quality for completion, when the task will be done. And this is what I mean when you're probably looking at going, what is she going over such basic stuff for? Because some of these elements get missed. The element that is missed most often is the why. Now, Martin Seligman in his research into happiness, one of the core elements of happiness is doing work with meaning, work that has meaning. And for work to have meaning, we have to have context. Telling people why we want them to do something, if we're not giving them context, we're taking away meaning. Their work is meaningless. We will reduce the level of happiness, we will reduce the level of engagement, and from there it's a slippery slope in terms of actual productivity, output, obviously staff engagement. So tell people why. Trust. When we make a request of someone, we trust that the person is competent, reliable, and sincere. So we don't make a request of someone if we don't believe they're going to carry through. The mood. One of the things we often miss is, what is the mood of the audience? If we walk into a meeting, shoulders are slumped, heads are down, the mood and the energy is low, and hopefully we'll have enough emotional intelligence to actually sense that. There is no point, if the mood is low, in asking people to do more. We have to shift the mood or come back later when the mood has shifted. So those are the elements of an effective request. When we are talking committed language and using language that makes things happen, we know that any request will cover off on every single one of those elements. None of them will be missed. So let's say someone asks us to do something and we are using the language of commitment. We can make a promise, we can commit to carrying through. Now, promises have certain elements. The first one is obviously we'll say yes. However, equally importantly and equally authentic is to say no. I'm not going to do that. Or we can make a counter offer or negotiation. I can't do it now, but I can do it tomorrow, or I can get someone else to do it. So we can make a counter offer when someone makes a request of us. We can say, look, I'm too busy to even talk about it now. How about we commit to talk at the end of the day today? So we can commit to committing later. And the final and most worrisome is the one that is used so often in business, that slippery promise. It's leave it with me. I'll get round to it sometime. I should be able to look at that. Now that is, there's nothing there. There's no commitment, there's no promise. You don't have an acceptance, you don't have a decline, you don't have a negotiation, or you don't have a commit to commit later. You've got nothing. So when you are being authentic, and again I encourage you to listen to your own language, be aware of when you make slippery promises. When you say, oh, leave it with me, knowing full well that you are too busy to do it, but you're wanting to be kind. And from my perspective, kindness is the enemy of authenticity. When you are being authentic, you're prepared to say no. You're prepared to say, I'm too busy, come back later. You're prepared to say, I can't do it today, I can do it next month. You're prepared to be authentic. But if you're making slippery, leave it with me, I should be able to get that round to that sometime, kind of comments, you're not being authentic. So listen to your own language and beware of being sloppy in making your requests and being slippery in those promises of yours. And that's language that my dear colleague Lynn Trail uses. So beware of your sloppy requests and your slippery promises. The third element of talking that makes things happen is making an offer. Now, when we put ourselves forward to do something for someone, that is making an offer. So, for example, I had a presentation to 50 ladies about business networking. And for those of you who don't know, my business networking success book is available on Amazon Kindle. There's a sales pitch. When we put ourselves forward to do something for someone, so I was preparing the room, getting everything ready. The lady who was organizing the event, who was my client, asked me about 3 times, Liz, do you have everything you need? Is there anything I can do for you? So she was turning up as an offer. Her whole attitude was one of service, one of getting things done, one of willingness, one of being present. So when you show up, do you show up as an offer or do you show up as an excuse? Do you show up in your language of mediocrity? Do you show up as unwilling, uncaring, or unprepared to actually make a change and make things happen? That old phrase, are you part of the solution or are you part of the problem? Do you show up as an offer? In your very body language, you will show up as an offer or not. So that is the language of commitment, the talking that makes things happen. We use requests, we make promises, and we turn up as an offer. and that creates a shift in an organization, albeit an incremental shift. It's all about continuous improvement. Let's take it another step. Now we're going to use the language and the talking that makes things possible, and this is breakthrough language. In this instance, our language is about possibility, it's about our vision and where we're going, and it's about how we're going to get there. Possibility, vision, and values. And I've just finished reading the Simon Sinek book, Start With Why, and it's very much around possibility, vision, and values. His golden circle model is definitely in this column. So when we are using talking that makes things possible, when our language is a language of breakthroughs, we will make declarations. Do we need to be standing behind a podium or a pulpit to do that? Absolutely not. However, I do like that picture because it says this person is making a declaration. One of the most common ones, declarations, is telling people what you stand for. Politicians are very good at saying, I stand for freedom and the American way. We don't have to stand up and do that with star-spangled banners behind us. But what we do is we say, I stand for safety. I stand for empowerment. I stand for trust. I stand for authenticity. I stand for honesty. When you say what you stand for, you say what your values are. Truth, honesty, authenticity, those are all nouns. So when you are thinking in terms of what you stand for, and I hope if you haven't already done so as a result of this webinar, one of your takeaways from this webinar will be that you will write down what you stand for. When you are telling people what you stand for, try and turn it into a verb. I stand for honesty. I stand for telling the truth. I stand for being honest with people. I stand for authenticity. I stand for being true and speaking truth about my vision and my values. I stand for empowerment. So again, we have this noun, turn it into a verb. I stand for empowering our staff to do the best that they can do within the boundaries of the roles and the structure that we're allowing them. I stand for delegation. I really do stand for delegation. I stand for allowing others to grow and learn within the roles, and for teaching them and for letting them grow. When you start to think about committed language, breakthrough language, and being authentic, I encourage you to start thinking about what it is that you stand for and what your values are. Two of the most powerful words in the English language, I say. I say I'm going to. I say we should talk about. I say that we should. I say that we will. When you say the two words I say, they trigger a response inside people's brains that makes them stop. It stops arguments. It stops the yeah but that we sometimes do. And it makes them listen to what you actually do say. So when you want to make a shift in an organization, when you want to be fully authentic, the words I say are incredibly powerful. I thoroughly recommend you start practicing those two words. During a meeting, I say we go here. I say we do this. I say whatever. You open a door to totally new possibilities. The third declaration we can make is telling people what you will do. Not what you could do or what you might do, but what you will do. Again, this is a conversation stopper because it makes people think about what they will do. But when you say, this is what I will do, make sure, for heaven's sake, that you follow through and that you're authentic to that statement. The focus is about now and ongoing. It's very much a self-determined, and it creates breakthroughs. It creates complete changes, and it takes us into the future. So when we're using this breakthrough language, we're talking about the things that make things possible. It's about possibilities, our vision, and our values. And when more of our conversations are sitting about possibilities, visions, and values, we will shift our group, we will shift the business, we will shift the organization, we will shift our future, we will shift the futures of everyone around us. Because people want to follow someone who is going somewhere. People want to follow someone who stands for something. Goodness knows we've got enough religious cults around with lunatics going, I stand for little men on spaceships. People follow that. They want to know what you stand for so they can opt in or opt out. And either one is okay. When they choose to opt out, at least you're opening the door for them to leave your organization. When they opt in, you're increasing your engagement. Increased engagement, increased productivity, reduced sick leave, reduced downtime, reduced stress. So that's language of breakthrough. That's the language that leaders use. So there is our model. We've got a choice. We can use descriptive language, or we can use committed language. We can talk about things and stuff, or we can make changes, make step changes and continuous improvements, or we can make breakthroughs. And when we're being authentic, we are sitting in the two left-hand columns. We're turning up as an offer, we're making promises, we're making valid requests, and we're making declarations. We're talking about action, outcome, possibility, vision, and values. Authentic language, authentic conversations sit in the two left-hand columns. And interestingly, that's Simon Sinek Golden Circle from the book Start With Why. And if you don't have the book, there's a video on YouTube, Simonsinek, I believe it is, Simon Sinek, talks about his golden circle. He's in the two left-hand columns, the why, the how, and then the what. And what is very much the print that I've put on there in the red. So you'll notice that there are a lot of models out there, and the one I use is this one, but it dovetails nicely with that golden circle. So the 57 varieties, what conversations could we have? I'm going to take you through a list of potential conversations. There are more conversations, there are more possibilities. I'm limited to this list because I've got a limitation on my time today. This is to introduce you to the idea that we have a conversation for a reason. So when we have the conversation, we think in advance, what's the purpose of this conversation? Why am I having it? What would I like as a result? How would I like the other person to feel? What's my purpose? So I'm actually being authentic going into the conversation. What possibilities do I want to open up as a result of this conversation? So I'm going to take you through this list of potential conversations to give you an idea of some of the conversations you could be having. So the first one is potential conversation for common commitment. This is where we talk to people about purpose, vision, mission, and values. We share with them what ours are, we ask them to share with us, and we see where the common elements are so we can have a common commitment to a common purpose, a common vision, common mission, and common values. And that can be a negotiation, but it's a conversation to start. We could have a conversation for clarity, and this is quite a normal everyday business conversation where there's perhaps a misunderstanding or a lack of clarity around a goal. Having a conversation for clarity, asking someone for a conversation for clarity, even though the language itself is a bit weird, at least they know when we say, can I have a conversation for clarity with you, that there's something that's obviously unclear. Conversation for relationship, and this is the one that makes men run for cover when their girlfriends or their wives introduce it. But when we have conversations with our peers, with our team, with our stakeholders, with our leadership team, about the relationship that we are having with them, are they getting what they need from the relationship? Are we bringing what they need from the relationship? Are we getting what we want from the relationship? Is the relationship developing as it should? That's an incredibly mature, adult, and emotionally intelligent conversation to have. It also needs a little bit of preparation because those alarm bells ring when someone says to you, I want to have a conversation about our relationship. Can you be prepared at 3 p.m. today? It may stop their heart a little bit or make it beat a bit faster. You might need to put in some clarity around the reason. Say, I want it to develop. I want it to grow. I'm a bit uncertain on parts of it. Can we have a conversation about that? Again, a very mature, very adult, emotionally intelligent conversation to have. Conversation for possibility. I read a report recently that said brainstorming is the enemy of innovation because it creates groupthink. When we want to create a shift, when we want to create something new, having a conversation about what's possible is immensely useful. And one of the things that I suggest when you're having conversations for possibility is get a blank whiteboard, blank flip charts, as many people as possible using the pen, as many people as possible standing. Because when we lift our eyes up, innovative thinking or creative thinking increases. When our heads are down, our eyes are down, we're actually blocking off the creative element of our brains. So when we're having a conversation for possibility, get people up, get their eyes up, get their heads up, blank sheets of paper, and create possibilities. Often there is one person with the pen and the rest are sitting down. That creates an imbalance in energy and it creates an imbalance in power. We want people, when we're talking about possibilities, to be at the same level. Conversation for opportunity. Now, conversation for opportunity uses a different part of the brain, a different brain process than a conversation for possibility. Conversations for possibilities are all about what could we do, about innovation, creativity. Conversations for opportunity are about narrowing down, about analyzing and critiquing those possibilities. It's a different process. It's an entirely different conversation had at a different time. So please don't confuse possibility and opportunity. Have them at different times. Conversation for the coordination of action. This is a typical workplace meeting. We've got an agenda. Who's doing what are they doing? What are they going to commit to and by when? Hopefully that gets written down and followed up. Conversation for progress. That's part of the follow-up. How are we doing on what we committed to? It's a separate conversation and it's incredibly important to have it. Any organization that is not having conversations for progress will not achieve their goals. Conversation for possible conversations. Now this again is weird language and I appreciate it sounds weird, but sometimes we need to actually have a chat to say, where are we at? What do we need to talk about? What's the real issue here? If the issue is a lack of purpose or lack of vision or lack of mission, then we need to have a conversation about common commitment. If the issue is lack of clarity about who's doing what, then the conversation is about clarity, followed up by a conversation for coordination of action. So sometimes we need to have a conversation to work out what conversation we need to have and then schedule that in. And again, this is something that we would do naturally when we are taking on a leadership role and when we are being leaders. Conversation for accomplishment. Sometimes we forget to have this one. Hey, we achieved something. If all we achieved was identifying our values, let's celebrate the accomplishment of that. We may not have taken any action, but at least we know what we stand for. That's something that's huge that's been accomplished. Let's celebrate it. Conversation for appreciation. The beautiful words, thank you. We appreciate what's happening in our lives, the good stuff. We appreciate the people who are around us, and we appreciate what they do. Often we get so busy doing, looking at the goals, and the goals are out in the distance, that we forget what we've accomplished, who's helped us to accomplish it, and we forget to say thank you. So I encourage you, if you're not already doing so, and there's a very good chance if you're listening to this webinar, you're already doing it because you're so aware, but if you're not, occasionally have a conversation for appreciation and be really specific about what it is that you're appreciating. I want to thank you for doing X, Y, Z. That meant a lot or that made a difference. Conversation for accountability. It's almost the opposite of a conversation for appreciation. Again, this is one which unfortunately tends to get avoided because for some reason we seem to think that we shouldn't be holding people accountable for what they're not doing. So just as we appreciate people for what they do, part of our role in being a leader is to hold them accountable for what they're not doing. So if we've got an action, an agreement, and a commitment, and a promise, then equally there is accountability. When they deliver, we appreciate. When they don't deliver, we hold them accountable. And it's an incredibly important conversation to have, and when we don't hold people accountable, ultimately we will be held accountable. Because if we're not holding our people accountable, then we're not going to be delivering on our goals. And that's unfortunate. And I'll refer you to the Newfield Institute for more information around conversations you can have. So what are the factors of authentic conversations? How do we know when we're having an authentic conversation? Well, first of all, we're going to plan sufficient time for the conversation to happen. Secondly, we will have had an honest exchange. There will be mutual respect, and neither party will feel judged. Note that I'm not saying neither party will be judged, neither party will feel judged. That's a fine distinction, but it's an incredibly important distinction. There's going to be an emotional connection between the participants, so they will take their shells off, and those shells of protection, and there will be an emotional connection. Each participant will feel listened to. The topic will be meaningful, an important question or issue will be raised, and progress will be made and recognized. Those are the 7 elements. We know if we cover off on those 7, our conversations are authentic. If we're having rushed conversations, then they're not authentic. It means if we're rushing it, it means we've put something else as more important than the conversation. So we're not giving value and respect to the other person. Let's look at the steps to set up an authentic conversation. First of all, we state the situation in clear, non-judgmental terms. Secondly, we'll talk about our emotion or our feeling. We'll state the value, the need, the vision, or the position that we've got around this situation. We'll make a request that the person, the group, meets our value, need, vision, or position. Then we be quiet, allow the other person to speak, give them space and listen. Remember that, listening. They must feel listened to, they must feel respected, and then we will be open to their statement and their request. Looking at some of the conversations that we could have, halfway down the screen we've got this conversation for coordination of action. So a typical corporate conversation, a typical meeting conversation. So we go into the meeting, perhaps we've got our team, it could be even the weekly meeting. My favorite person, John, is in our team. And John last week committed to doing something, and we want to know what's going on. So say, John, last week you committed to doing whatever it was that you committed to do. I'm going to ask you for an update. I'm feeling uncertain about what the position is. So number 2, I'm feeling uncertain. Now if John had been managing upwards, I wouldn't be feeling uncertain. So if John had been keeping me in the loop and letting me know what he's been doing, I wouldn't be feeling uncertain. John, last week you committed to doing this. I'm feeling a bit uncertain about where we're at. I need clarity on where we're at because I need to know that we are going to meet our team goals. That's number 3. John, can you give me an update, please, on where you are at with this part of the project? Number 4. Then I keep quiet. It's John's turn. I hand the baton metaphorically over to John. It's his turn to speak. When he's finished, I want to make sure that he knows that I am supportive of him. So I'm going to be open to a request for him. So I'm not going to say, John, do you need anything from me? Because that shuts the conversation down. It's a closed question. John's, if he's in a public forum, he's probably going to say no. Because no one wants other people to think that they need help. It's this thing we do, we're a rock, we're an island, we don't ask for help. However, as leaders, we should always be asking for help. What we ask instead of, do you need anything from me? Is it, John, what do you need from me to make this happen? It's an open question. Check the distinction on your language on that. So those are the 5 steps, the 5 elements. It's an emotional connection. And if you're going to have an emotional connection, you've got to state what your emotion is around the situation. It's non-judgmental. You're stating what your value, your need, your vision, or your position is. You make a request. You listen to hear, are they going to make a promise? Are they turning up as an offer? And then you're open to their request. What do you need from me? And in this instance, you're turning up as an offer. And your choice there is you can follow through with I say, or what I will do is, and request again that they follow through and get a commitment. So this is how we use the language, the breakthrough language in authentic conversations. These are the elements setting up an authentic conversation. It's about increasing your emotional intelligence, and when you're increasing your emotional intelligence, you must problem solve with and about emotions, which means you have to acknowledge them, which means you have to state them out loud. And for some reason in the corporate world, we seem to think that we don't talk about emotions. Mature adults always talk about emotions. This is what I'm feeling. And I'm loving this book of Simon Sinek's because we are irrational beings. Our decisions are made in our limbic brain, and it is our rational brain that puts logic and rationality around those decisions. But every decision we make is an emotional decision. It's a gut feeling decision, and then we rationalize it. And I love the way that he's described it and put it into words. I've been saying it for years, and it's nice to see there's a bestseller and someone who's on 10 videos saying the same thing. So revisiting the factors of the authentic conversations, we allow sufficient time. It's an honest exchange. There's mutual respect and no feeling on either side of being judged. We've got an emotional connection. Each of us feels listened to. And when we are listening, just actively listening to someone, we've got eye contact, we're nodding, we're not distracted by our smartphone or BlackBerry or laptop or whatever's going on. We're focused on that person. The topic is meaningful. There's something important being raised, and we make progress. So those are the factors. When we can tick all of those off, we know that we're having an authentic conversation. Is this stuff easy? No, it is so not easy. It takes conscious effort. It takes ongoing commitment and a really strong sense of why you would want to have an authentic conversation. So I'm going to bring this to a close now and ask you, why would you shift from the conversations you've been having and finesse through and have more authentic conversations? Now, I talked about increasing trust, faith, belief, and inspire. Those are my whys. But what are yours? Because sometimes when we have authentic conversations, it's uncomfortable. Because we may be speaking a truth that the other party has never heard before. Our honesty can be confronting. Now, honesty does not need to be cruel. It does not need to be rude, and it is not cruel, and it is not rude. It's courteous and caring, but it is honest. But in that honesty, we can be confronting to the other person, and they may not be ready to have an authentic conversation. So we may get a little bit of pushback initially until people start to appreciate what we're doing, and more importantly, why we're doing it. Which is why one of those conversations for common commitment and getting agreement is so important. So take a few minutes as I open up to question and answer to think about, what is your why? Why would you shift? Why are you listening to this webinar today? What's driving you? What is it that you know that is missing, or that you've recognized that's missing from your conversations, that will push you towards being more authentic in your language and perhaps pushing towards breakthroughs in your language? So what we've covered, coming to the end, wrapping it up: how to spot time-wasting, energy-sapping language mediocrity. It's that water cooler conversation about the past. How to avoid it: first of all, walk away. And second, start shifting your language into language of promises, requests, and offers, and then into possibility, vision, mission, and values. And that's what real leaders talk about. That's breakthrough language. The types of conversations we have and when to have them, we have 57 varieties, the elements of a truly authentic conversation, that tick list, and the 5 steps of setting up an authentic conversation. And why would we do that? I'm just about at the end of my talking. I'm going to open up now to questions and answers. Please, if you've got any questions, or if there's anything else you want to cover that you think maybe I haven't covered, please type your questions into the question box in your control panel. Either I've astonished you with the clarity and content, or you're dumbstruck that it's too simple and too basic, because quite frankly, this is simple and basic. It's like the conversations themselves. Can we go back to the factor screen? Sufficient time to plan, honest exchange, emotional connection, each participant feels listened to, topic that's meaningful, an important question or issue is raised, progress, movement, or learning has occurred, a new point of view is recognized. Now, it's interesting, when we're having these authentic conversations, we tend to expose more of ourselves. And I was reading a leadership blog this morning. The individual concerned, for some reason, someone told her in her past not to expose too much of herself in her private life. And then a 360 feedback was done when she was in a leadership position, and it said that she was emotionally removed. So she was trying to find the balance between murkiness, hiding her private life, transparency, exposing too much, and trying to find that balance as a leader. And the word she came up with was translucent, where you can see some but not everything. I think when we are having authentic conversations and authentic relationships, we're more to that translucent, transparent end rather than the murky end. We allow ourselves to be exposed emotionally because we talk about where we're at, what's important to us. Thanks ever so much for being on the webinar. I will post out a recording of this. Please feel free to share the recording with your team, share the recording with your peers and your colleagues. As I said, this is a no sales pitch webinar. It's very much about assisting people to become more authentic in their language and to create breakthroughs in their conversations. When you are being that honest, real, simple person with your language and your conversations, you'll create real change in yourself, real change in your people, real change in your team, real change in your organization, and you will shift the future. You cannot not.